cruise ship. Even if you haven't been on a cruise, have you ever been on one of those ships? It's a city floating in the ocean. And, my wife Sharon, she's trying to be some kind of a travel agent. So when she was in Florida, one of the things that she has to do, or she can do, is she gets an opportunity to go on the cruise ship and tour the ship so that she can know what people will be able to experience when they get on the ship, so that when she's on the phone or she's trying to tell people this is what's going to happen, she can know. So it's just remarkable. And also she had the opportunity to go with her sister on a cruise recently. So when you're on these cruises, you're living on this ship. Even though the ship might be in the middle of the ocean, you don't know you're in the middle of the ocean. Because inside, it's like going down a street in a town. On the left and on the right, they have all these different shops, and they have all these different places, and there's places where you can go to watch movies, and there's places where you go swimming, and you can go to the spa, and then they have all this food and different types of restaurants and dancing and karaoke and on, and you can go to, and you can look up, and you can look up 3 or 4 floors, stories, and there's huge trees and so forth, and it's all taking place on a ship. So you forget that you're actually on a ship. And my talk today is about the fact that mankind has been on a kind of a ship, and we never made it to our port. But I want you to just imagine the most incredible and huge cruise ship possible. All of mankind is on this ship, but only a few people ever realize that this is a ship moving through a vast ocean toward a special destination. Many people born on this ship and raised in the lower decks only know this simple life as their entire reality. They only believe in what they experience or what they are told by the crew, whom may or may not have the people's best interest in mind. Many do not understand they are on a ship in the middle of the ocean. The crew represents people of power, wealth, and knowledge. People who discover they are indeed on a ship moving toward a mysterious destination represent the religious people. I saw a movie with Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger together. And the premise of the movie is, believe it or not, Sylvester Stallone is very smart, and he's able to break in and out of prisons very easily. So he gets put into many different high-security prisons so that he can break out of those prisons, and by doing so, he can educate, the people that own the prison to be careful. This is how the criminals are going to escape. So the premise of the movie is that he gets asked by a special FBI agent to secretly go into a maximum security government prison. And inside that prison, he has to try to find a way to break out. And while he's in the prison, he meets Arnold. And Arnold is this prisoner. And all of these prisoners at this particular location, they're not normal prisoners. They all have some reason why foreign governments don't want them around. So we don't even know if these people are really bad or really good. But there's a scene in the movie where Sylvester Stallone is casing the whole thing, and he notices that during the times that they have breaks, they're going back and forth like this, but mostly everything is built up. So he realizes this prison must be underground. And if he's going to escape, he's going to have to work his way up to the top. So he goes through this very elaborate process of trying to find a way to get himself thrown into some maximum security, and then he has to find his way through all the different air ducts and fool the guards. And all this time, Arnold Schwarzenegger is helping him. He stages a fight among the prisoners at one side of the prison so that all the guards are over there, and Stallone is here, and he's working his way up to the top, and he finally gets up to the very top, and he breaks open the top, he pushes open the thing, and he looks out, and all he sees is the ocean. Because this prison was inside a huge ship. So now, even though he's broken out, he sees what's there, what's he going to do? He's in the middle of an ocean. He doesn't even know where this ship might be. So that is in reality the situation of us. God is the creator and designer of the ship. And the captain was supposed to be the original true parents of mankind, the first ancestors, Adam and Eve. They were meant to steer the ship to its final destination, which is the port that lands at the kingdom of heaven. They were to educate their descendants about God and the great ship he created for all mankind. But thousands of years ago, there was a mutiny, and the ship was taken over by the archangel Lucifer, who became Satan and took dominion over fallen mankind and God's ship. He became the captain and is controlling the crew. So if you can imagine, you might find yourself in this vessel. What if you were born on this ship, and all you ever knew was what your parents taught you and what the people around you told you? And you knew there was a crew, and you knew somewhere there was a captain, but you could never really meet that person for some reason or another. That he was always a secret, locked away. He exists in some high point. This is the situation of mankind. We are like people on an incredible cruise ship. This earth is like a ship that floats through an ocean of space. And we have found ourselves on this ship. 2,000 years ago, God sent a new captain to the ship. His name was Jesus. But the evil captain and crew killed him. Now God has sent a new captain, the true parents. And they have gained control and have replaced the evil crew with a few good men. Since it's Memorial Day, might as well make reference to the military, the Marines, a few good men. These are the members of the Unification Church who have met and trust this new captain. Together, they are taking the ship to its final destination. This is the reality of what has happened in history. No one knew that they were actually not living in the ideal or the place of origin or the place that God originally designed or created or intended. This vehicle, this earthly life that God designed and created to bring us to the kingdom of heaven was hijacked secretly, and no one knew. Buddhists didn't know. Confucianists didn't know. Muslims didn't know. Even Christians really didn't know. They had a vague idea. They have a vague idea. Something's wrong. Something's not right. This ship is not going where it's supposed to go. But they could never pinpoint precisely or exactly what the problem was. 2,000 years ago when Jesus came, he was the only person that had the possibility that he understood clearly who has taken this ship from God and why are people living the way they are. And he attempted to wrestle control back and return the ship to God and to change its direction, to change its course, and to bring it to its destination, which is the kingdom of heaven. But he couldn't do it. He was killed. And so for 2,000 years, people have continued to live unaware, completely, vaguely aware. Religious people know something's not right, and they try with all their heart to do the right thing for the most part. But even, we know, even religious people, even any of us, could be subverted. You know, we hurt each other. We go against God's ideal of true love. Eventually, everyone on this ship will arrive at the port or gate of the kingdom of heaven. The captain and the crew will have done their part to bring the ship safely to its destination. Then this part of the journey will be finished, and everyone will be free to choose to continue to spend their lives on the ship with its confining and limited possibilities, or to now enter a new world of greater freedom and tremendous stability on solid ground. True parents have guided mankind to a point. The ship has arrived at its destination. Now, people can choose. Do we continue to live on the ship and continue to live a life that is very limited and with limited possibilities and potential? Or can we recognize that we have to get off of this ship and enter into a new world? That we were never meant to stay on this ship. Naturally, the captain and crew will be ready to leave the ship behind. But what about everyone else? Although almost everyone dreams of a better world, will they be able to recognize it when it comes? This ship arrived at its port on Foundation Day, February 22nd, 2013. That day was the end of the captain and the crew's mission and responsibility to the ship and its people. On that day, the true parents gave their final blessing and invitation to all who wished to join them in departing from the ship to enter the kingdom of heaven. This is what's happening. God has created the potential and the possibility. It's here. We who worked so hard and sacrificed so much, we can get off the ship. But other people, they still don't realize and recognize that they are still stuck on a ship. So still, you know, bad things happen. But it's changing. There's so much good that's happening and so many people are realizing, you know. I mean, Hollywood, you know, the good and the bad. You know, we just saw this beautiful song, you know, all about God and just honoring God, you know, sung in front of everybody and all these country western singers, and, you know, so beautiful. And yet at the same time, there's tragedies. Before I came today, I was looking at the story. This young man, 22 years old, he stabbed his 3 roommates to death. And then he drove out and he shot 3 people to death out of anger and resentment, and then he killed himself. He wounded 13 others in California. He's the son of some kind of a movie director who worked on the Hunger Games. 22 years old. He made a YouTube video before he did this, and he went on how he was so resentful toward women that had rejected him, and he was going to teach them a lesson. And he was so angry at guys that got the girls, and he was going to show them who the true alpha male was. He just snapped. Here's this very wealthy person. If you look at his picture, he's a perfectly fine young man. He's not ugly, comes from a family, obviously, that has wealth and influence. Why did he do this? Because he didn't understand love. He didn't realize that he was loved. He got mixed up in his mind about what's valuable and what's not valuable. He doesn't understand the reality of God, the reality of the spiritual world, that there's more to life than what we're experiencing in this moment. You know, it's an incredible tragedy. True parents leave behind the divine principle, which is the completed teaching from God and true parents, explaining clearly the history about this ship and explaining the fundamental way to become qualified to live in the kingdom of heaven. So now we've arrived, and we have to create the kingdom of heaven. What is the kingdom of heaven? Now it seems that God is going to let us become more directly responsible for our actions and our way of life. The rest of the story remains to be written by us. The history of restoration through indemnity, the purpose for the coming of the Messiah, is finished. It's done. Now, what remains is the work of becoming true sons and true daughters, fulfilling the original 3 blessings. You know, to be fruitful, to multiply, to have dominion, centered on a God of true love. The kingdom of heaven is like Disneyland. It really is. It's a beautiful place. You know, where your dreams can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart. If you're not 60 or 70 or 80 years old in your heart. You know, can you imagine? What if you could live at a place like this? You know, Disney has hotels and motels. You live right there. Go for days at a time and live at Disneyland and travel through all the theme parks and walk. Oh, and there's plenty of food and everything that you could ever imagine that you might want. But most of all, there's family and friends. People that you enjoy being with, that you love. You know, if you go to a place like Disneyland, then you want to be there with people so that when you see something incredible, you go, oh man, did you see that? Did you see that? You want to share things, the joy and the happiness with other people. That's the kingdom of heaven. When we have joy and happiness in our hearts and we share our lives with each other. You know, centered on goodness, centered on the original purpose. These are the words that always come to my mind and my heart whenever I think of Father. He said in this speech on the 50th anniversary, distinguished guests, everything I have ever taught is permeated with one point above all else. That is that we must know God and spirit world with certainty. It is not enough to have God vaguely in our head, like a mathematical formula that we once memorized. Instead, we must carve his existence onto our hearts, even into our bones. We must know the relationship that God has with us and the attributes he possesses. We must know about the ideal world that he desired in the beginning and when that world will be brought about. We must have the same degree of knowledge of spirit world. The world after death definitely exists, independent of human beings' will, and we must know accurately of it if we are to use our time in this world to prepare thoroughly for the next. Whatever tragedy strikes, whether it's a natural disaster or it's created by a 22-year-old young man who's so frustrated with his life that he goes out and does such terrible things, or even when we ourselves make mistakes, we have to understand that that's not the end of it. Our life in this earthly time is meant to be a time of making mistakes. of growing, of learning, of becoming educated by God, by the natural world around us, by correct religious teaching. We're meant to live in this earthly life, growing and developing, evolving, if you want to use the word evolve or evolution. There's an evolutionary developing process. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes are insignificant, but sometimes they're very significant. And we hurt each other. But even then, even no matter what mistake we've made, it can be resolved. It can be corrected. Eventually, it will be corrected. It will be resolved. Even this young man, he suddenly stabbed to death 3 people that he lived with. Now they are in the spiritual world. Exactly in what frame of mind, exactly what they're thinking or feeling in this moment, I have no idea. But I can imagine they're very frustrated with their friend. Or at least they thought this guy was their friend. Maybe they're shocked and surprised. Someday, he will meet them again. And that broken relationship that exists between them, the result of what he did to change the course of their destiny, maybe now they will never be married. They will never have children. They will never have descendants or a family. Their course, their situation in life is now different. And eventually, that will have to be resolved. And this is the case for everybody that makes a serious mistake. But even the most serious mistakes will be resolved. They can and they will be resolved. They must be resolved. If not here, then there, in the spiritual world. So, true parents, during his lifetime, he lived a life of really loving, not just loving people, but educating, teaching, sharing, explaining about God, about the nature of true love, and led a sacrificial life, making so many conditions and so much effort to try to teach us. And then ultimately, the ultimate gift is really to give this blessing, to give this ceremony of changing the lineage, of returning back, of being taken out of being under the dominion of the evil crew and captain, and being allowed to come back and to live with God's original ideal and original crew and captain, to become part of God's family. We are not part of Satan's family anymore. No one in this room is. And I have a strong sense, that most of mankind is not even connected directly to Satan anymore. They are connected to true parents now. Whether they know it or not, whether they're aware of it or not, even whether they like it or not, God has already made the decision. Because God is the designer and creator of the universe. He decided millions and millions of years ago that there will be a kingdom of heaven. And that He will create sons and daughters who will find joy and happiness in their lives. And will experience fully and completely the joy that He intended us to experience. But He gave us this responsibility. So we have this amount of freedom to choose, to decide. When will we agree that God's ideal is really the best ideal? And that His method is really spot on, perfect? That He's got our best interest in mind. He wants us to be happier. and more filled with joy and hope than even we do. Even we, in our wildest dreams, cannot imagine how much joy and happiness and love and greatness we are destined to experience in our future. We need to have that sense of confidence and that sense of hope, especially on a Memorial Day. So many people paid such a price. People paid an incredible price because of Satan and evil and darkness and ignorance. And it's the reality, but it's a reality whose time has passed. So it's up to us. It's up to us to fully grasp the significance of who we are and what we experienced. First generation, the second generation, all of us. If we study the divine principle, if we really consider the life of Sun Myung Moon and his teaching, and look at it even objectively, even from a distance, and compare, measure it up against reality, it's incredible, amazing, remarkable, unbelievably great hope and teaching with so many answers to so many questions that people had through history. Now we are without excuse. We are without excuse. The only difference between us and anyone else is that we happen to have been exposed to the truth and we realized, I think this is real, this is true. This is the correct understanding of life. The other philosophies and teachings and doctrines, nothing wrong with trying to do the right thing. But they were limited. They were limited. Now, we can see clearly. We're not in the dark anymore. It's like the book of Revelations. This incredible judgment. It's a great judgment that has come because the truth is here. And the light is shining everywhere. So we can easily recognize when we're not principled people. The difference between being selfish or unselfish. And it doesn't mean that you should, in an unbalanced way, give up all your ideals and your dreams. It's kind of the opposite. God wants us to be independent and individualist and unique and special, and to share our uniqueness with each other in a productive way, in a developmental way, in a growing way. So on this Memorial Day, let us remember where we come from and also what God has done for us. We are truly people who have arrived. We're at the gates of the kingdom of heaven. And the doors are open. But God has said, even though I designed and created this incredible, wonderful, beautiful place, at least you have to buy a ticket. You have to do something to get in. If you go to a water park, for example, you have to bring a bathing suit. You have to bring a towel. You have to have something that you need to bring. You have to know how to swim. If you go to the most beautiful, Olympic-style swimming pool, and it's just beautiful, but you don't know how to swim, then you can't experience it fully. Same thing, those of us that play golf. We love to go to the beautiful golf course and play golf. But if you go there and you don't have a set of clubs, or if you don't know the rules, Or if you don't know how to swing the club, if you don't know the basics, you won't be able to enjoy it. If you don't know who Mickey Mouse is, or Donald Duck, or Goofy, then when they show up, they might scare you. I've seen people at places like that were, I think Shauna, the first time, because she was born in California, the first time we went to Disneyland and she saw Goofy or one of those, man, that was scary stuff. Because she didn't know who he was. Now she knows he's Goofy, like her dad. But that's the reality. We have to do our part. God expects us to reach a certain level of internal maturity. Then, when we go into the kingdom of heaven, when we go into this place, then not only are we going to experience it fully, but we will share it with each other. We will realize this experience isn't just for me. It's for all of us. Everyone can come here and experience the same joy and happiness that I do. Like watching a great movie. Everybody goes to the theater and watches the same exact movie. But everybody enjoys it a little bit differently and experiences it a little differently. But it's a collective, unified experience. And the kingdom of heaven is supposed to be like that. So let us never forget and never doubt that we have been so blessed, and that all we have to do now is just kind of open our mouth a little bit and share our life. Show people, as we're walking off that huge gangplank of this old ship and getting ready to go into the kingdom of heaven, then, people will see us. Hey, where are they going? Wow, they look pretty happy and they're leaving the ship. Maybe I want to go there. That kind of thing. So that's our responsibility. So let us, on this Memorial Day and this weekend, really appreciate what God has done for us. And never forget, God is our parent, and we have eternal life in the spiritual world. So we're meant to grow and to learn and to become people of true love and connect to God's true life and true lineage. Thank you. Our Heavenly Parent, thank you this Memorial Day coming up tomorrow, and it's 2014 this year. Already so many years have passed since you designed and created this universe, but most of your history, most of the history of mankind has been filled with so much tragedy. And even still today, people are filled with frustration and resentment and anger and bitterness, and they don't know how to deal with it. Sometimes it just erupts and comes out in such a terrible way as they hurt other people and hurt themselves. Heavenly Father, help us to really grow up and embody and become like the true parents, loving and forgiving and sacrificing and trying to find the ways to share your love and your truth and your goodness with others, to help people to know with certainty that you are our parent and that we are your sons and daughters, and that you've created us to live not just for a short period of time, but for eternity. So we have to have bigger minds and bigger hearts. Thank you for all the blessings you give. Please bless every family that's here and guide us in the course of our week and our lives. And we ask that you'll be here present with us, and we report these things as your sons and daughters and as Blessed Central families. And in my name, John Pace, with Sharon Pace, as the Blessed Central family, we report these things. Amen and amen.